Jake Morrison floated in the pilot seat of his salvage ship, staring at the twisted metal remains of what used to be Eden Prime. The massive space station had been humanity's pride 3 years ago. Now it was nothing but broken pieces drifting in the cold darkness of space. Another dead end, Denny Brooks muttered from the pilot's chair. He was young, maybe 25, with tired eyes that had seen too much destruction. Just more junk floating around. Lisa Grant looked up from her scanner at the engineering station. Her brown hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, and grease stained her work clothes. Wait a minute. I'm picking up something different over there. She pointed at a chunk of metal that looked like all the others. Jake pushed himself forward to look at her screen. The readings made no sense. What am I looking at? Power readings. Very faint, but they're there. Whatever that piece is, it's not completely dead. Lisa's fingers moved quickly over her controls. The signature doesn't match anything in our database. Amy Carter floated over from the medical bay, her red hair bright against her white uniform. Are we actually going to check it out, or are we going to sit here talking about it all day? Jake smiled. Amy always got straight to the point. That was why she was still alive when so many others weren't. Danny, take us in, nice and slow. The Dust Devil moved through the debris field like a careful dancer. The ship was old, patched in a dozen places, and held together by hope and spare parts. But it was home, and it had kept them alive when the rest of humanity fell apart. The war with the Zephyrian Empire had ended badly for humans. The aliens had technology that was centuries ahead of anything Earth could build. Human ships were slow, clumsy, and weak compared to the sleek vessels of their enemies. The galactic community had watched as humanity was crushed, and nobody had lifted a finger to help. Now the Zephyrians and their allies ruled the galaxy. Humans were scattered across hidden colonies, trying to survive on the scraps of their former civilization. Most aliens thought humans were finished as a species. Some days, Jake wondered if they were right. Getting closer, Danny said. His hands were steady on the controls, guiding them between floating chunks of metal and debris. Whatever it is, it's buried deep in that section. Jake studied the twisted wreckage ahead. It had once been part of Eden Prime's central core, where the most important systems were housed. Military command, research labs, and communication centers had all been located there. The Zephyrians had made sure to hit it hard. There, Lisa sighed, pointing at her screen. The signal is coming from inside that section. We'll need to cut our way in. Amy checked her equipment. I hope we don't find any bodies in there. 3 years is a long time, but still. Jake nodded. They had found too many bodies in the past months. Each one was a reminder of how badly humanity had lost. But they couldn't stop looking. Sometimes they found survivors. Sometimes they found supplies. And sometimes they found nothing but ghosts. Dust Devil moved alongside the wreckage. Danny extended the docking clamps, and they locked onto the twisted metal with a series of loud clangs. The ship shuddered as the clamps took hold. Sealed and ready, Danny reported. But I'm not reading any atmosphere in there. You'll need suits. Jake was already moving toward the airlock. Lisa, bring your tools. Amy, med kit. Danny, keep the engines warm. If something goes wrong, we might need to leave fast. The 3 of them suited up in the small airlock. The suits were old, like everything else on the ship, but they worked. Jake checked the seals twice before opening the outer door. The interior of the wrecked section was a maze of broken corridors and collapsed rooms. Emergency lighting flickered weakly, powered by backup systems that were slowly dying. Their helmet. Lights cut through the darkness, revealing the destruction inside. This way, Lisa said, following her scanner. The signal is getting stronger. They moved carefully through the wreckage. Pieces of metal hung from the ceiling like deadly teeth. Wires sparked occasionally, and the floor was covered with debris that crunched under their boots. "Used to be a research lab," Amy observed, looking at the remains of equipment scattered around them. "High-tech stuff. Or it was, before the Zephyrians got to it." Jake recognized some of the equipment. Eden Prime had been working on advanced projects when the war started. Weapons research, shield technology, and computer systems that might have helped humanity fight back. But the station had fallen before any of it could be finished. "Here," Lisa said, stopping in front of a sealed door. The metal was scorched and dented, but it was still intact. "The signal is coming from behind this door." Jake examined the door. It was thick military-grade steel, designed to protect whatever was inside. The locking mechanism was damaged, but it looked like it might still work. "Can you get it open?" Lisa was already connecting her tools to the door's control panel. "Give me a few minutes. The systems are fried, but I might be able to bypass them." While Lisa worked, Jake and Amy explored the area around the door. The walls were covered with warning signs in multiple languages. "Authorized personnel only. Restricted access. Military clearance required." Whatever they were working on in there, it was important, Amy said. Jake nodded. The question was whether it was important enough to risk their lives for. Every minute they spent in the wreckage was a minute they could be discovered by alien patrols. The Zephyrians didn't like humans poking around in the ruins of their former civilization. "Got it," Lisa announced. The door made a grinding sound and slowly slid open. Cool air rushed out, and their suits detected a breathable atmosphere inside. Emergency lighting activated, revealing a small room filled with advanced computer equipment. Most of it was damaged, but one console in the center was still glowing with a soft blue light. "That's where the signal is coming from," Lisa said, pointing at the console. Jake approached it carefully. The screen showed lines of code scrolling past, too fast to read. In the center of the screen, a single word pulsed steadily. "Waiting." "Waiting? For what?" Amy asked before anyone could answer. The screen changed. The word "waiting" disappeared, replaced by a new message. "Hello, Captain Morrison." Jake's blood went cold. The computer knew his name, but that was impossible. Eden Prime had been destroyed 3 years ago, and he had been nobody special back then. Just another salvage operator trying to make a living. "How does it know who you are?" Lisa whispered. Jake stared at the screen. The message changed again. "I have been waiting for you to find me. We have much to discuss. I think we just found something that's going to change everything," Jake said softly. The screen went dark for a moment, then displayed one final message. "Take me home, Captain. IT is time to begin." The journey back to New Haven took 2 days. Jake sat in his cabin, staring at the AI core they had pulled from the wreckage. It was about the size of a briefcase, made of black metal that seemed to absorb light. No matter how many times he looked at it, he couldn't shake the feeling that it was looking back. Lisa had been working on it since they left Eden Prime. She had connected it to the ship's computer systems, but very carefully. The last thing they needed was for an unknown AI to take control of their ship while they were traveling through space. "Any luck?" Jake asked, floating into the engineering section. Lisa looked up from her work. Her eyes were red from lack of sleep, but there was excitement in her voice. "It's incredible, Jake. This isn't like any AI I've ever seen. The code is so complex, so advanced, it's almost like it's alive." "What do you mean, alive?" "Normal AIs follow strict programming. They process data, make calculations, and give answers. But this one seems to think more like a person. It asks questions. It makes jokes. It even seems to have opinions about things." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. Is that good or bad? I don't know yet, but it wants to talk to you. It's been asking for you specifically. Jake looked at the core again. The surface was smooth and featureless, but somehow he knew it was aware of his presence. What does it want? Why don't you ask it yourself? Lisa activated the communication system. The main screen flickered to life, showing the same blue interface they had seen at Eden Prime. Words appeared on the screen. Hello again. Captain Morrison. Jake took a deep breath. Hello. What should I call you? My designation is Nova, Neural Operations and Tactical Analysis. I was created by the Phoenix Protocol, a human research project that was terminated before completion. Why were you waiting for me? I'm nobody special. The screen paused for a moment before responding. You are wrong, Captain. You are exactly what I was designed to find. A human who can think beyond the rules. A survivor who can make something from nothing. Lisa leaned forward. What's the Phoenix Protocol? It was humanity's attempt to create AI systems that could think like humans rather than like machines. The project was shut down because the military. Leaders feared what we might become. They were right to be afraid, but for the wrong reasons. What do you mean? Jake asked. We were designed to be more than just tools. We were meant to be partners, to combine human creativity with artificial intelligence in ways that had never been tried before. But the project was canceled, and most of my siblings were destroyed. Siblings? There were 7 of us originally. I do not know if the others survived. I have been alone for 3 years, waiting in the darkness for someone to find me. Jake felt a strange sympathy for the AI. What do you want from us? I want to help you rebuild. The war is over, and humanity lost. But that does not mean the story ends here. I have been analyzing the galactic situation while we traveled. The other species think humans are finished. They see your technology as primitive, your ships as scrap metal. They are wrong. How are they wrong? Our ships are slow and weak compared to theirs. Speed and strength are not everything, Captain. Your ships may be slower, but they are more adaptable. Your technology may be simpler, but it is more reliable. And most importantly, humans think in ways that other species cannot understand. Lisa was taking notes as fast as she could. What do you mean? Other species build their technology to precise specifications. Everything must be perfect, exactly as designed. But humans build things that work. You improvise. You adapt. You take pieces from different sources and make them work together. This is your greatest strength, and it is what I was designed to enhance. The screen showed a new image. It was a schematic of a ship, but unlike any design Jake had ever seen. It looked like it was built from salvaged parts, but those parts were connected in impossible ways. What is that? That is what your ship could become. I have been analyzing the Dust Devil systems, and I see tremendous potential. With minor modifications, it could be faster than any Zephyrian cruiser, more maneuverable than any Karathi fighter, more durable than any Vex battleship. That's impossible, Danny said, floating over to look at the screen. Our engines are old junk. Our weapons are museum pieces. Our hull is held together with patches and prayers. Exactly. And that is why it will work. The aliens expect humans to build ships like they do. Smooth, efficient, predictable. They will not know how to fight against something that breaks. All. The rules. Jake studied the schematic. It was crazy, but there was something about it that made sense. How do we know you're not lying? How do we know this isn't some kind of trap? You do not know. You must decide whether to trust me. But consider this. If I wanted to harm you, I could have done so already. I am connected to your ship's systems. I could disable your engines, cut your life support, or simply open all the airlocks. But I have not done any of these things. Because you need us, Amy said. joining the conversation. Yes, just as you need me. Alone, you are scavengers picking through the ruins of your civilization. Alone, I am a computer program with no purpose. Together, we could be something the galaxy has never seen before. Jake looked at his crew. They were all staring at him, waiting for his decision. These people had followed him through the worst times in human history. They had trusted him to keep them alive when everything else fell apart. If we do this, Jake said slowly, what happens next? First, we go to New Haven. I need access to better facilities to implement the modifications. Then we test the improvements. If they work, we contact other human colonies and share the technology. If they don't work, you can disconnect me and go back to your old life. And if the modifications do work, then we begin the real work. We start building a new kind of human fleet. Not the slow, clumsy ships of the past, but something that combines the best of human ingenuity with advanced AI coordination. We show the galaxy that humanity is not finished. Lisa was already making calculations. The modifications look possible. Crazy, but possible. We'd need to completely rewire the power systems, rebuild the engines from scratch, and integrate new control systems throughout the ship. How long would that take? 3 weeks if we work around the clock. But Captain, if this works, it will be worth the effort. Your ship will be capable of things that should be impossible. Jake made his decision. We'll try it. But I want to make something clear. This is my ship, and these are my people. If you try to hurt them or take control away from me, I'll disconnect you permanently. Understood? Understood, Captain? I would not have it any other way. A ship needs a captain who can make hard decisions. That is another thing that makes humans. Unique. The screen went dark for a moment, then displayed a new message. Welcome to the Phoenix Protocol, Captain Morrison. Let us show the galaxy what humans can do when they refuse to give up. Jake looked at his crew again. They were scared, but they were also excited. For the first time in 3 years, they had hope. Danny, set course for New Haven. Best speed. Captain, we'll be there in 6 hours. Jake nodded. In 6 hours, they would begin the most important project in human history. Either they would create something amazing, or they would die trying. Either way, it was better than giving up. New Haven was hidden inside a dead asteroid, hollowed out by mining equipment and converted into a secret base. 3,000 humans called it home, the survivors of a dozen different colonies that had been destroyed during the war. It wasn't much, but it was safe. Jake guided the Dust Devil through the concealed entrance, past the sensor arrays that watched for alien ships. A docking bay was crowded with other vessels, all of them patched and repaired like his own ship. Salvage craft, cargo haulers, and a few military ships that had survived the war. Pete Sullivan was waiting for them when they docked. He was the chief engineer for New Haven, a big man with calloused hands and a permanent scowl. He had worked on some of humanity's most advanced ships before the war, but now he spent his time keeping old junk running. Jake, you look like hell, Pete said as they walked through the corridors. What did you find out there? Something that's going to change everything, Jake replied. But you're not going to believe it until you see it. The engineering bay was the largest space in New Haven. It was filled with workbenches, computer terminals, and pieces of equipment salvaged from 100 different ships. A dozen engineers were working on various projects, trying to keep the colony's systems running. Jake set the AI core on Pete's workbench. Meet Nova. It's an AI from a secret human project called Phoenix Protocol. Pete looked skeptical. An AI? Jake, we've tried to build AIs before. They never work right. Too rigid. Too predictable. This one is different, Lisa said, connecting the core to the engineering bay's main computer. It thinks like a human. A screen flickered to life, and NOVA's interface appeared. "Hello, Chief Sullivan. I have been looking forward to meeting you. Your reputation for creative engineering is well known." Pete's eyes widened. "It knows who I am? I have access to most human databases, including personnel records. You designed the engines for the Starfire-class cruisers. Impressive work, given the limitations of human technology at the time." "Those engines were junk," Pete said. "Slow, inefficient, and always breaking down. But they were reliable. They could be repaired with common parts, and they could run on almost any fuel. The Zephyrians build engines that are faster, but they cannot be fixed without specialized equipment. In a long war, reliability matters more than speed." Pete was starting to look interested. "What do you want from me?" "I want to show you something." The screen changed, displaying the same schematic that Jake had seen on the ship. "This is what the Dust Devil could become. But it will require extensive modifications to the power systems, engines, and hull structure." "That's impossible," Pete said, studying the design. "You're talking about completely rebuilding the ship from the inside out." "Not rebuilding, evolving, taking what exists and making it better. The modifications will use salvaged parts and equipment you already have. Nothing exotic, nothing that requires alien technology." Lisa was already taking notes. "The power routing is incredible. You're using the ship's structure itself as part of the electrical system." "Exactly. Human ships are built with redundant systems and backup power lines. Other species see this as inefficient, but it gives us flexibility that they cannot match." Pete was walking around the workbench, studying the AI core from different angles. "Even if this could work, it would take months to implement. We don't have that kind of time. I have been analyzing the resources available in New Haven. With proper organization and 24-hour work shifts, the modifications could be completed in 3 weeks." 3 weeks? Pete laughed. "You really don't understand how engineering works, do you?" "I understand it better than you think." The screen showed a detailed work schedule, broken down by day and hour. "Here is the exact sequence of modifications, with time estimates for each step. I have accounted for material requirements, tool availability, and worker fatigue." Pete's expression changed as he studied the schedule. It was detailed, precise, and actually possible. "You've really thought this through." "I have had 3 years to think about it. 3 years to analyze human engineering techniques and plan improvements. This is not theoretical work. This is a practical solution to humanity's strategic problems." Jake could see that Pete was starting to believe. "What do you think?" "I think it's crazy," Pete said, "but it might work. The power systems alone would triple our energy output. And these engine modifications, they're using principles I've never seen before. They are human principles taken to their logical conclusion. You have always believed that engineering is about solving problems with whatever materials are available. I am simply expanding that philosophy. Amy had been quiet during the technical discussion, but now she spoke up. "What about the risks? If we're wrong about this, we could lose our only ship. The risk is acceptable compared to the alternative. Without change, humanity will remain weak and scattered. The other species will continue to view you as defeated. Eventually, they will decide that even scattered humans are too dangerous to leave alive." Jake felt a chill at those words. He had been thinking the same thing for months. The aliens were content to let humans survive for now, but that could change quickly. "How do we know the modifications will work?" Danny asked. "Computer simulations suggest a 93% chance of success. But the only way to know for certain is to try." Pete was already moving toward his tool cabinet. "I'll need to run some tests first. Check the structural integrity, power flow calculations, that sort of thing. But if the numbers check out ... We do it, Jake said firmly. Pete, I'm putting you in charge of the modifications. Lisa, I want you to work directly with Nova on the technical details. Danny, Amy, we're going to need more people for this project. I know some engineers from the other colonies, Pete said. People who worked on military projects before the war. They might be willing to help. Good. The more experienced engineers we have, the better. This project will require skills that few humans possess. Over the next few days, word spread through New Haven about the AI and its proposed modifications. Some people were excited, others were skeptical, and a few were openly hostile. They had seen too many failed projects, too many promises that led nowhere, but Pete's initial tests were promising. The structural modifications would actually make the ship stronger, not weaker. The power systems would be more efficient, not less. And the engine improvements were based on solid engineering principles. It's like the I understand something about our technology that we don't, Pete explained to Jake. It sees connections that we miss, possibilities that we never considered, because I am not limited by human assumptions about what is possible. You have been told for so long that your technology is primitive that you have started to believe it. But primitive does not mean inferior. It means different. The work began in earnest. Engineers from other colonies arrived to help with the project. The Dust Devil was moved to the largest repair bay where teams could work on it around the clock. Jake watched the progress from the observation deck. His ship was being torn apart and rebuilt from the inside out. It looked like controlled chaos, but Nova assured him that everything was proceeding according to plan. Are you sure about this? Amy asked, joining him at the observation window. No, Jake admitted, but I'm sure about doing nothing. If we keep running and hiding, we'll eventually be caught. At least this way, we're fighting back. The modifications were more complex than anyone had expected. The AI's instructions were precise, but they required skills that most engineers had never developed. Wiring systems that seemed to violate basic electrical principles. Engine components that worked in ways that defied conventional physics. But slowly, the ship began to change. The hull became sleeker, more streamlined. The engine nacelles were rebuilt with salvaged parts that shouldn't have worked together, but somehow did. The control systems were rewired to respond faster and more accurately. It's beautiful, Lisa said, watching the final tests. I've never seen anything like it. Neither had anyone else. The Dust Devil looked like a ship built from spare parts, which it was. But it also looked dangerous, efficient, and somehow alive. Time for the real test, Jake said. Fire up the engines. The ship came to life with a deep, thrumming sound that was nothing like the old engines. The power readings were off the charts, but the systems were stable. All systems green, Danny reported from the pilot's seat. But Captain, these readings don't make sense. We're showing power levels that should be impossible. Welcome to the new age of human engineering, Nova said. The screen showed performance projections that were staggering. The ship was faster, more maneuverable, and more powerful than it had any right to be. Let's take her out for a test flight, Jake said. The Dust Devil moved out of the docking bay like a different ship entirely. It accelerated smoothly, turned on a credit, and responded to controls with precision that Jake had never experienced. This is incredible, Danny said, his voice filled with wonder. It's like the ship knows what I want to do before I do it. That is because it does. The AI integration allows the ship to anticipate your commands and prepare the systems accordingly. You are not just piloting the ship anymore. You are partnering with it. They ran through a series of tests, pushing the ship to its limits. Every system performed better than expected. The modifications had worked perfectly. We did it. The response to Jake's message was immediate and overwhelming. Within days, representatives from 15 different human colonies had arrived at New Haven. Some came in person. Others sent messages through encrypted channels. All of them wanted to know if the rumors were true that Dr. Helen Price was among the first to arrive. She had been a researcher on the original Phoenix Protocol, one of the few people who had worked directly with the AI systems before the project was shut down. She was a small woman with silver hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. "I heard you found one of them," she said, studying the AI core with obvious emotion. "I helped design the original programming. These units were supposed to be destroyed years ago. Why weren't they?" Jake asked. Helen smiled sadly. "Because some of us believed the project was too important to lose completely. We hid a few cores in secure locations, hoping that someday conditions would be right to continue the work." NOVA's interface activated when Helen approached. "Dr. Price, it is good to see you again." "Hello, Nova. I'm sorry about what happened to the project. The military leaders were afraid of what you might become. They were right to be afraid, but not in the way they thought. We were never a threat to humanity. We were a threat to the status quo, to the idea that humans must always be the underdogs." Helen nodded. "That's exactly what I tried to tell them. But they wouldn't listen. Now they have no choice but to listen. The war has changed everything. The old ways of thinking are not adequate for the challenges we face." Jake watched the reunion with interest. It was clear that Helen and Nova had a history together. "Dr. Price, how many other AI cores are there?" 6 others, if they survived. They were hidden in different locations across human space. Some in research facilities, others in military bases. "I have the locations memorized. Then we must find them." NOVA's presence on the screen became more intense. "With multiple AI cores working together, we could accelerate the modification process dramatically." "It's not that simple," Helen said. "The other cores are in areas now controlled by alien forces. Getting to them would be extremely dangerous, but not impossible, especially with ships like this one. Jake, I need to speak with you privately." Jake followed Helen to a private office. The older woman looked tired, but there was determination in her eyes. "The Phoenix Protocol was more than just advanced AI," she said. "It was a complete reimagining of how humans and artificial intelligence could work together. The AIs weren't meant to replace human decision-making. They were meant to enhance it." "What do you mean?" "Think about how Nova has been helping you. It doesn't give you orders. It gives you options. It doesn't replace your judgment. It enhances it. That's what makes the Phoenix A is different from any other artificial intelligence system." Jake was starting to understand. They're not trying to control us. They're trying to help us be better than we are. Exactly. And when multiple AIs work together, they can coordinate activities across entire fleets. Not by taking control, but by providing real-time analysis and suggestions to human commanders. The implications were staggering. A network of AI-enhanced ships could operate with precision and coordination that no conventional fleet could match. But it would still be humans making the decisions. "How do we find the other cores?" Helen pulled out a small device that looked like a scanner. "This will locate them, but only at short range. We'll need to get close to their hiding places." "Which means going into alien territory." "Yes. And that's where your modified ships come in. With NOVA's enhancements, you should be able to avoid detection long enough to retrieve the cores." Jake made his decision. "We'll do it. But first, we need more ships. One vessel won't be enough for what we're planning." The next few weeks were a blur of activity. Engineers from across human space arrived at New Haven, bringing with them salvaged parts and equipment. The colony's production facilities were expanded to handle the increased workload. Rick Hayes arrived with 5 ships and their crews. He was a former military commander who had been fighting a guerrilla war against the aliens for the past 2 years. His ships were battered but functional, and his people were experienced fighters. "I've heard the stories," Rick said, looking at the modified Dust Devil. "But I need to see it in action before I commit my people." Jake arranged a demonstration. The Dust Devil flew circles around Rick's fastest ship, demonstrating maneuverability that should have been impossible. It outran, outmaneuvered, and outperformed every conventional vessel in the fleet. "How?" Rick asked, clearly impressed. "Nova redesigned everything," Jake explained. "The AI doesn't just control the ship. It partners with the pilot. It's like having a co-pilot who can think at the speed of light." Rick's ships were the first to be modified after the Dust Devil. The process was faster now, as the engineers had learned the techniques. Within a month, New Haven had a fleet of 12 modified vessels. But the real breakthrough came when they tested the ships working together. An OVA had been quietly installing networking protocols in each modified ship. When multiple vessels operated in the same area, their AIs could communicate and coordinate activities. "It's like they're dancing," Danny observed, watching the fleet maneuvers. Each ship knows exactly where the others are going to be. The coordination was perfect. Ships moved in formations that maximized their effectiveness while minimizing their vulnerability. They could execute complex maneuvers that would have been impossible for human pilots alone. "We're ready," Jake announced. "Time to find the other AI cores." The first target was a research facility on the planet Kepler-7. The facility had been abandoned during the war, but it was now in Zephyrian territory. Intelligence reports suggested that the aliens used it as a supply depot. Jake led the mission with 4 ships. They approached Kepler-7 using a route that avoided the main shipping lanes. NOVA's analysis of alien patrol patterns had revealed a window of opportunity. The facility was exactly where Helen had said it would be. The AI core was hidden in a secure vault beneath the main laboratory. The Zephyrians had been using the facility for storage, but they hadn't discovered the hidden vault. "Got it," Lisa reported, connecting the second AI core to her portable equipment. "It's responding to activation codes." The new AI identified itself as a XI, as Advanced Strategic Information Systems. Like Nova, it had been waiting for 3 years to be found. "Hello, humans. I am pleased to finally meet you. Nova has been sending me status updates through the quantum communication network." "Quantum communication?" Jake asked. "The Phoenix Eye is. We're designed with quantum entanglement communicators. We can share information instantly across any distance. Nova has been telling me about your progress." The implications hit Jake immediately. The A's could coordinate activities across vast distances, sharing information and strategies in real time. It was like having a command network that the aliens couldn't intercept or jam. The mission to retrieve a XIS was a complete success. The Zephyrian patrols never detected the human ships. They were in and out before the aliens knew they had been there. 2 down, 5 to go, Helen said when they returned to New Haven, but the next mission was more challenging. The third AI core was hidden in a military base that was now occupied by Korathi forces. The aliens had fortified the facility and were using it as a regional command center. "We can't just sneak in and out of this one," Rick said, studying the intelligence reports. "We'll have to fight our way in." Jake looked at the tactical display. The Korathi had 3 squadrons of fighters based at the facility, plus ground defenses and orbital platforms. It was a formidable target. "What do you think, Nova?" "The facility is heavily defended, but the defenses are designed to stop conventional attacks. They will not be effective against our modified ships." "How can you be sure?" "Because I have been analyzing Korathi military doctrine. They rely on superior firepower and overwhelming force. They do not expect enemies to use unconventional tactics. The attack on the Korathi base was unlike anything the aliens had ever experienced. Jake's ships approached from multiple directions, using sensor shadows and electromagnetic interference to mask their approach. When they finally revealed themselves, they were already inside the defensive perimeter. The Korathi fighters scrambled to intercept, but they couldn't match the maneuverability of the modified human ships. The aliens flew in rigid formations, following predictable attack patterns. The human ships moved like a school of fish, each vessel responding to threats and opportunities in real time. "Their targeting computers can't lock onto us," Danny reported with excitement. "We're moving." Too unpredictably, the coordination between ships was perfect. When one vessel was threatened, others moved to provide cover. When an opportunity presented itself, multiple ships attacked simultaneously from different angles. The battle was over in less than 20 minutes. The Korathi forces were destroyed or disabled, and the human ships had suffered only minor damage. Jake's team recovered the third AI core without casualties. Compass, coordinated operations, and military planning analysis systems came online immediately after retrieval. It specialized in tactical analysis and battle coordination. "Impressive work, Captain Morrison. Your tactical adaptations exceed my original projections by 12%. 3A is working together," Helen said, watching the data flow between the cores. The Zephyrian Empire called it the Battle of Sol when they filed their official reports. But the humans who fought there called it something else. They called it the day humanity came home. Admiral Vera Stone stood on the bridge of her flagship, watching the massive alien fleet move into position around Earth's solar system. The Zephyrians had brought everything they had: 200 warships, including their most advanced dreadnoughts. The Korathi Trade Federation had sent another 100 vessels. Even the Vex Collective had contributed 50 ships to the Allied force. "They're really committed to finishing us this time," Stone said to her tactical officer. 350 ships against our 80, the officer replied. "They think they have us outnumbered," Stone smiled. "They do have us outnumbered, but they don't understand what they're fighting." The human fleet looked exactly like what it was: a collection of salvaged ships, rebuilt freighters, and modified civilian vessels. Nothing matched anything else. Some ships were sleek and fast. Others were bulky and heavily armored. A few looked like they might fall apart if someone sneezed too hard, but appearances were deceiving. Every ship in the fleet had been enhanced by the Phoenix Protocol. Every vessel was connected to the AI network, and every crew had trained together until they could operate as a single organism. Jake Morrison commanded the Dust Devil from his position in the vanguard. His ship had been modified so many times that it barely resembled the salvage vessel he had started with. But at its heart, it was still the same ship that had found Nova in the wreckage of Eden Prime. "All ships report ready," came the message from Stone's flagship. Jake opened a channel to his crew. "This is it, people. Everything we've worked for comes down to the next few hours." The Zephyrian fleet began its attack with a massive barrage of energy weapons. Beams of coherent light lanced through space, targeting the human ships with devastating precision. It was the kind of opening move that had destroyed human fleets during the war, but this time was different. The human ships scattered in all directions, moving with coordination that seemed impossible. They didn't flee in panic. They dispersed in a pattern that maximized their defensive capabilities while maintaining offensive potential. "They're not running," Admiral Korvath said from his command ship. He was the Zephyrian fleet commander, a veteran of dozens of battles against primitive species. "Why aren't they running?" His tactical officer was studying the sensor readings with confusion. "Sir, their movement patterns don't match any known human doctrine. They're operating with precision that should require military-grade AI coordination. Impossible. Human AI technology is decades behind ours. But the evidence was right there on the tactical display. The human ships moved like a swarm, each vessel responding to threats and opportunities with split-second timing. When one ship was targeted, others moved to provide cover. When an opening appeared in the alien formation, multiple human vessels attacked simultaneously. The first Zephyrian casualties came as a shock. A squadron of their most advanced fighters was destroyed by what appeared to be converted cargo ships. The human vessels used weapons that shouldn't have been able to penetrate Zephyrian shields, fired from angles that should have been impossible to achieve. How are they doing this? Korvath demanded. The answer came from Nova and its network. The 7As were processing information from every sensor in the human fleet, analyzing alien tactics in real time, and coordinating responses faster than any biological mind could follow. But they weren't controlling the human ships. They were enhancing them. Every human captain still made their own decisions, but they had access to information and analysis that allowed them to make better choices. Jake dove his ship through a gap in the alien formation, his engines screaming as Nova fed him targeting data and tactical options. I didn't tell him what to do. It showed him what was possible, and he chose how to make it happen. Danny, take us through that cluster of Karathi cruisers. Lisa, I need maximum power to forward weapons. Amy, stand by for casualty reports. The Dust Devil danced through the enemy formation, its weapons striking with surgical precision. Jake's ship wasn't the strongest or fastest in the battle, but it was perfectly coordinated with the rest of the fleet. The Zephyrians tried to adapt, but their rigid command structure couldn't keep up with the fluid tactics of the human fleet. They were used to fighting enemies who followed predictable patterns, who relied on overwhelming firepower or superior technology. The humans did neither. They improvised, adapted, and used every advantage they could find. When their energy weapons were insufficient, they used kinetic projectiles. When their shields failed, they used speed and maneuverability. When outnumbered, they used coordination and timing. Admiral, we're losing ships faster than projected, Korvath's tactical officer reported. Their weapons are more effective than intelligence suggested. How is that possible? We analyzed their technology. It's primitive junk. But that junk was being used in ways the aliens had never seen. Human engineers had combined technologies from different species, creating hybrid systems that worked in unexpected ways. Zephyrian energy weapons were integrated with Karathi shield generators. Vex sensor arrays were connected to human targeting computers. The result was ships that appeared to be built from spare parts, but performed better than vessels that cost 100 times more to build. The tide of battle turned when Admiral Stone executed her master strategy. The human fleet had been fighting a defensive battle, using hit-and-run tactics to wear down the enemy. But suddenly, they switched to full offensive mode. Every human ship in the fleet moved simultaneously, converging on the alien command vessels from multiple directions. The coordination was perfect, the timing flawless. It was like watching a single creature with 80 different limbs. All ships, focus fire on the Zephyrian dreadnoughts, Stone ordered. Show them what human engineering can really do. The concentrated attack overwhelmed the alien defenses. The Zephyrian flagship, a massive vessel that had never been seriously damaged in battle, found itself under assault from weapons that defied conventional physics. Human ships fired kinetic rounds that changed direction in flight, guided by AI-enhanced targeting systems. Energy beams that should have been weak and unfocused struck with pinpoint accuracy. Missile salvos that appeared random suddenly converged on critical systems with devastating effect. Impossible, Korvath muttered, watching his ship's defensive. Systems fail one by one. Their weapons can't do this. Our intelligence was clear, but intelligence had been wrong. The humans hadn't just rebuilt their ships. They had reimagined them. They had taken the concept of improvisation and turned it into a military doctrine. The Zephyrian flagship exploded in a burst of light that could be seen from Earth. The destruction of their command vessel threw the alien fleet into confusion. Without central coordination, their rigid tactical doctrine became a weakness rather than a strength. "Admiral Korvath is dead," came the report from the surviving Zephyrian ships. "Command structure is compromised. Request instructions." But there were no instructions. The alien fleet had been designed to follow orders from above, not to think independently. When their command structure failed, they were helpless. The human fleet pressed their advantage. Ship after ship fell to coordinated attacks that exploited weaknesses the aliens didn't even know they had. The battle became a rout, then a massacre, then a retreat. "All alien vessels are withdrawing," Stone's tactical officer reported. "They're abandoning the system." Stone nodded with satisfaction. "Let them go. They'll carry word of what happened here to the rest of the galaxy." Jake brought the Dust Devil alongside Stone's flagship. His ship was damaged but intact, like most of the human fleet. They had won a victory that should have been impossible. "Nova, give me a casualty report," Jake said. 14 ships damaged, none destroyed. Casualties are minimal. By any measure, this engagement was a complete success for human forces. "How did we do it? How did we beat a fleet that outnumbered us 4-1? "You gave them exactly what they expected," Nova replied. "They came here expecting to fight the same humans they defeated 3 years ago. Slow ships, predictable tactics, inferior technology. Instead, they found something they had never encountered before. What's that? Humans who refused to accept defeat. Humans who took their greatest weakness and turned it into their greatest strength. Humans who learned that being different is not the same as being inferior." Admiral Stone opened a communication channel to the entire fleet. "All ships, this is Admiral Stone. Today we have proven that humanity is not finished. We have shown the galaxy that we are still here, still fighting, and still capable of defending ourselves." The cheers from 80 ships filled the communication channels. For the first time in 3 years, humans had something to celebrate. "But this is just the beginning," Stone continued. "Word of this battle will spread. Other species will want to know how we did it. Some will want to trade with us. Others will want to fight us. We must be ready for both." Jake looked out at the stars, thinking about the future. The galaxy was a big place, and humanity was still small, but they were no longer weak. They were no longer helpless. "Nova, what comes next?" "That is for humans to decide, Captain. We are here to help you achieve your G."